Tonight, we step gently into a world that feels both distant and strangely familiar. A world of stone streets warmed by the sun, of water flowing quietly through hidden channels, of footsteps echoing beneath tall arches that have stood for centuries. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, allow your breathing to slow. Let the noise of the present soften at the edges, and imagine, for a moment, that you are standing at the edge of an ancient Roman street. There is no rush here, only the steady rhythm of daily life. The distant murmur of voices. The soft splash of water in a fountain nearby, the quiet certainty of a civilization that has learned how to organize the world in practical, enduring ways. When we think of ancient Rome, we often imagine grand arenas or powerful emperors, but tonight, we will focus on something quieter, something simpler, the small inventions and systems that shaped everyday life. Things so practical, so well designed, that they quietly endured. Roads beneath your feet, water that arrives without effort, spaces built not just for survival, but for routine, comfort, and order. These are the kinds of ideas that rarely demand attention, and yet they change everything. So, let us begin not with emperors or battles, but with you, standing in the early light of a Roman morning, living a life shaped by innovations so subtle, you might not even notice them at first. You wake. As the first light enters your room, the air is cool, held within thick stone walls that have absorbed the quiet of the night. Beneath you, the floor is firm, laid with smooth tiles that feel steady and reassuring. There is a stillness here, a sense that everything around you has been arranged with care. You rise slowly and step outside. The street is already alive, though no one seems hurried. People move with purpose, but without urgency. Sandaled feet press softly against the ground. And beneath those feet is something remarkable. A road. Flat. Solid. Carefully constructed from layers of stone and gravel, fitted together so precisely that even after years of use, it remains dependable. You walk along it, almost without thinking. There is no need to watch each step for deep mud or shifting ground. Even after rain, the surface holds. Water drains away through shallow channels at the edges, guided by a system that quietly prevents the street from becoming unusable. It feels ordinary, but it is not. This road connects you to other streets, which connect to larger roads, stretching far beyond the city itself. If you were to follow them long enough, you could travel across vast distances without losing your way. But for now, your world is here, and it works. As you continue walking, you hear it before you see it. The gentle, continuous sound of water. You turn a corner and find a public fountain, where a steady stream flows from a carved stone spout into a basin below. The water is clear. Cool. Constant. It has traveled from far beyond the city, carried by a structure you may never see in full. An aqueduct, a long, carefully engineered channel that guides water from distant hills into the heart of urban life. You cup your hands and drink. There is no need to draw water from a well or carry heavy containers from a distant source. It is simply here. Available. Reliable. Around you. Others gather quietly. Some fill clay jars. Others pause briefly before continuing on their way. Water, in this place, is not something to worry about. It is part of the rhythm of the day. As the morning continues, you make your way toward a public bath. The building stands solid and welcoming, its entrance wide, its interior designed with both function and calm in mind. Inside, the air is warmer. A soft haze lingers, created by heated water and gentle steam. You move through a sequence of rooms, each one slightly different. A space to undress, a warm room where your body begins to relax. Then a hotter chamber, where the heat settles into your muscles, easing the quiet stiffness of the morning. Beneath the floor, unseen, a system of heating channels carries warmth from a furnace. The heat rises evenly, turning cold stone into a surface that feels almost alive. You do not need to understand how it works, only that it does. Afterward, you move to a cooler pool. The water refreshes. Balances. Completes the experience. Around you, others follow the same routine. Not hurried. Not chaotic. Just a steady pattern repeated day after day. Cleanliness here is not an occasional effort. It is built into daily life. And as you leave the baths, stepping once again onto the familiar stone streets, you begin to notice something else. The city itself is organized. Waste is guided away through covered drains. Streets are aligned with intention. Public spaces are placed where they are needed most, even without thinking about it. You are moving through a system designed to support you. To make daily life smoother, more predictable. More stable. There is comfort in that predictability. You pass shops opening for the day, merchants arranging goods, bread displayed in neat rows, oil lamps being prepared for later use. Everything has its place. Everything follows a rhythm. And you, without effort, become part of it. As the sun rises higher, the city continues its steady motion. No single invention feels overwhelming. No moment seems traumatic. But together, these small, thoughtful systems create something powerful. A life where the basics are handled quietly. Where roads guide your steps, where water arrives without struggle, where spaces exist for rest, for cleanliness, for routine. It is easy, perhaps, to overlook these things. To assume they have always existed. But they have not. They were built. Planned. Maintained. And through their quiet presence, they shaped the course of human life in ways that continue even now. As you walk on, the sounds of the city soften into a steady background. Hum. Footsteps. Water. Distant voices. All moving together in calm, predictable harmony. And as we gently step away from this ordinary morning in ancient Rome, we begin to shift our attention. From the experience of daily life to one of the individuals who helped define how such systems were imagined and understood. A thinker. An observer. A man who studied how buildings stand, how water flows, and how cities function. In the next segment, we will meet Vitruvius and explore how his ideas quietly shaped the world you have just walked through. Now, let us slow down even further. Step away from the streets. Away from the baths and fountains. And into the quieter space of thought. Here, we meet a man named Vitruvius. His life is not loud or dramatic. There are no grand battles in his story. No sudden rise to power. Instead, his life is steady. Careful. Observant. Vitruvius lived during the time of the late Roman Republic, an early empire, a period of change, a period when Rome was growing, expanding, organizing itself into something larger and more structured. He worked as an architect and an engineer, but more importantly, he was a thinker, someone who asked simple questions. How should a building stand? How should a city be planned? How can something last for a very long time? These questions may sound ordinary. But in his time, they were deeply important. Vitruvius spent years studying how things were built. He observed walls, roads, bridges, temples. He paid attention to details that others might ignore. The way stones were placed together, the way water moved through channels, the way sunlight entered a room. He believed that good design followed clear principles. He described three simple ideas: strength, usefulness, beauty. In Latin, these were called formitas, utilitas, venustas, but you do not need to remember the words, only the meaning. A structure should be strong. It should work well, and it should feel balanced and pleasing. Not too much, not too little. Just right. Vitruvius also believed that nature offered guidance. He studied the human body, the way it is balanced, the way its proportions feel natural and even. He believed buildings should follow similar proportions. This idea would later influence artists and thinkers for many centuries, but in his own time, it was simply a way to create harmony. Vitruvius wrote down his ideas in a long work called De Architectura, a collection of 10 books, calm, detailed, and thoughtful. In these writings, he explained how to build cities. How to construct roads. How to design aqueducts. How to create spaces that were both useful and comfortable. He described how water should flow. How air should move. How buildings should face the sun. It was not about luxury. It was about balance. About making life work smoothly. His work was not widely celebrated during his lifetime. He was not a famous figure in the way emperors were, but his ideas remained. Copied. Stored. Passed quietly from one generation to another. Centuries later, during the Renaissance, his writings would be rediscovered. Architects would read them again, and once more, they would begin to think about balance, proportion, and thoughtful design. But for now, in his own time, Vitruvius continues his work, quietly. Walking through construction sites, observing materials, thinking about how things fit together. He does not rush. He does not seek attention. He simply studies. And writes and refines his understanding. Back in the city, the results of ideas like his are everywhere. In the roads beneath your feet. In the baths you visited earlier. In the fountains where water flows without effort. None of these things exist by accident. They are the result of careful planning, of steady thinking, of people like Vitruvius asking simple questions again and again. How can this be better? How can this last? How can this serve people quietly, without struggle? And as we leave his world of thought and observation, we begin to widen our view, because these ideas did not stay in one city. They traveled across vast distances, through many lands, carried by roads, by builders, by the slow expansion of an empire. In the next segment, we will follow that expansion. We will see how Roman engineering spread across continents, how roads, aqueducts, and structures appeared far beyond the city of Rome, always steady, always practical, always quietly shaping the world. Now, imagine stepping back, far above the city. Far above the streets, the baths, and the quiet fountains. From this distance, you begin to see something larger. Not just one city, but many. Connected. Slowly, steadily, over time, the ideas we have seen in Rome did not stay in one place. They moved outward, along roads. Across hills, through valleys, across rivers and coastlines. As the Roman world expanded, so did its way of building. Its way of organizing space, its way of making daily life a little more stable. One of the most important parts of this expansion was the road network. Roman roads were not temporary paths. They were carefully built, layer by layer. Stone. Gravel. Sand. Pressed and shaped to last. They stretched across the empire. From the city of Rome outward into distant regions. If you followed one road long enough, you might reach Gaul. Or Hispa. IA. Or the edges of the eastern provinces. These roads made movement easier. Not fast, but reliable. Soldiers could travel, merchants could transport goods, messengers could carry information. Even ordinary people could walk from one town to another without losing their way. The roads did not disappear in the rain. They did not turn into deep mud. They remained steady. Predictable. And this predictability changed everything. Along these roads, towns began to grow. Small settlements became organized communities. Markets formed. Buildings followed familiar patterns. Even far from Rome, cities began to feel similar. There was a quiet consistency, a shared rhythm. And with the roads came water. Aqueducts appeared across the landscape. Long lines of stone arches stretching across valleys. At first, they may seem still. Silent. But inside, water is always moving, flowing gently from distant sources, carried by careful design. Gravity guiding it forward. No need for force. No need for machines, just a slow, steady flow. These aqueducts brought water into towns that once depended on wells or nearby rivers. Now, fountains could be built, baths could function. Daily life became more comfortable, more predictable. Even in places far from the center of the empire, bridges also played a role. Where rivers once interrupted travel, stone bridges now allowed movement to continue. They were built with care, arches distributing weight evenly. Stone fitted tightly together, strong enough to last 4 generations. And many of them did, even now. Some still stand, quietly holding their place across time. As Roman engineering spread, it did not erase local traditions. Instead, it blended with them. Local materials were used, local styles were respected, but the underlying ideas remained consistent. Strength. Usefulness. Balance. Wherever you traveled within the empire, you could begin to recognize these patterns. A road beneath your feet, a fountain in the center of a town, bathhouse offering warmth and routine. These were not luxuries, they were systems, quiet systems that made life function more smoothly. Over time, this network of roads, water systems, and structures created something new. A sense of connection. People in distant regions were no longer completely isolated. Goods moved more easily. Ideas traveled. Information spread. Slowly. Steadily. Without urgency. But with lasting effect. And yet, as with all things, time moves forward. Empires change, cities grow, decline, and transform. Some roads fall into disuse, some aqueducts no longer carry water. Some buildings fade into silence, but they do not disappear completely. They remain. Hidden. Buried beneath layers of earth and newer cities. Waiting quietly. In the next segment, we will move beneath the surface. We will explore what still lies hidden below modern streets. The remains of Roman roads, forgotten tunnels, fragments of baths and foundations, clues left behind, waiting to be understood. Now, let us move slowly downward, beneath the streets, beneath the buildings, beneath the layers of time that have quietly settled over centuries. Above ground, cities feel modern. Busy. Constantly changing. But below, Something older remains. Still. Silent. Waiting. In places like Rome, the past is never far away. Sometimes it is only a few steps beneath your feet. Workers digging foundations for new buildings occasionally uncover smooth stone surfaces. At first, they may seem like ordinary rocks, but as the soil is cleared, patterns begin to appear. Flat stones, carefully arranged, edges aligned with quiet precision. A road. A Roman road. Once walked by countless people, now hidden beneath layers of earth and history. These discoveries are not rare. They happen again and again. Because Roman cities were not always replaced. Often, they were built upon. Each new generation adding its own layer above the last. And so, the past remains preserved below. Not lost, just covered. In London, similar discoveries have been made. Deep beneath modern streets, archaeologists have uncovered sections of Roman walls, fragments of buildings, and traces of long-forgotten roads, pieces of a city that once stood in the same place, quietly supporting life in a very different time. There are also sewers, hidden channels that once carried water and waste away from crowded areas. Some of these systems still exist. Dark, enclosed, and rarely seen, but carefully constructed, designed to function without attention, without interruption. They remind us that even in ancient times, people thought about cleanliness, about flow, about the unseen parts of daily life. And then there are BATHHOUSCS. Or rather, what remains of them. Large foundations, broken tiles, fragments of heated floors. When uncovered, they reveal the outlines of spaces that were once warm, active, and filled with quiet conversation. You can imagine the movement of people through these rooms, the soft sound of water. The gentle warmth rising from below the floors. Now, only the structure remains, but it is enough to understand what once existed. In some places, entire sections of ancient cities have been preserved, not as complete buildings, but as layers. One street above another. One wall built upon the remains of an older one. Time does not erase. It rearranges. It covers. It softens the edges of what came before. Archaeologists move carefully through these layers, brushing away soil. Recording small details, trying to understand how people once lived, what they built, how they organized their world. There is no rush in this work, only patience. Each discovery adds a small piece to a much larger picture. Fragment of pottery, a section of pavement, piece of a pipe that once carried water through the city. Together, these pieces tell a quiet story, not of grand events, but of daily life, of systems that worked, of people who built things to last. And even when those systems are no longer in use, their presence remains. Hidden. But not forgotten. If you were to walk through certain parts of Rome today, you might pass over ancient roads without realizing it. You might stand above an old foundation, or beside a wall that has been standing for nearly 2,000 years. The past is not gone. It is simply layered beneath the present, and sometimes, in quiet moments, it reveals itself again. As we gently leave these hidden spaces below the city, we begin to turn our attention to something less physical, but just as important: the way people understood their world, their beliefs, their rituals, the quiet practices that gave meaning to daily life. In the next segment, we will explore Roman beliefs about order, cleanliness, and the presence of the gods in everyday routines. Now, let us return above ground. Back into the soft light of the Roman day. But this time, We are not looking at roads or buildings. We are looking at something quieter, something less visible, but always present. Belief. In ancient Rome, daily life was not separate from religion. It was woven into it, not in loud or dramatic ways, but in small, steady actions repeated each day. In many homes, near the entrance or in a quiet corner, there is a small shrine, a place for the household gods. These gods are not distant or abstract. They are close. Protective. Part of the home itself. You might pause there in the morning. Light a small flame. Offer a bit of food, bread, perhaps, or a few drops of wine. Nothing large, nothing complicated. Just a simple gesture. Moment of recognition. The belief is not overwhelming. It is gentle, a quiet understanding that unseen forces are present in daily life. As you step outside, the city itself reflects this same sense of order. Temples stand in open spaces, columns rising upward, balanced and steady. People pass by them without stopping every time, but their presence is felt. They are part of the structure of the city, just like roads and fountains. Water, especially, holds meaning. It is not only practical. It is also symbolic. Flowing water represents cleanliness. Renewal. Balance. When you visit the baths, the experience is not just physical. It carries a sense of ritual. Moving from one room to another. Warm to hot. Hot to cool. It becomes a quiet process of renewal, not only of the body, but of the mind. Even the act of washing your hands at a fountain can feel like part of something larger. A small moment of order in the flow of the day. Roman religion is not focused on a single belief system. It is layered. Flexible. Open to influence. Gods from different cultures are welcomed and adapted. Traditions blend together over time. What matters most is not strict doctrine, but practice. Consistency. Doing the small things regularly, honoring the rhythms of life. Festivals also play a role, but even these are not always loud or overwhelming. Some are quiet. Seasonal. Marking the passing of time. The changing of weather, the cycles of planting and harvest. They bring a gentle structure to the year, a reminder that life moves in patterns. Just like the daily routines we have already seen. There is also a strong belief in balance. In keeping harmony between people, nature, and the divine. If something feels out of place, it is often addressed through ritual. An offering, a prayer, a careful adjustment, not with panic. But with calm intention. Even public works, like roads and aqueducts, are sometimes connected to belief. They are seen as part of a larger order, a reflection of how the world should function. Stable. Organized. Flowing smoothly. In this way, belief and daily life are never separate. They exist together. Quietly. Naturally. You do not step out of one and into the other. They move side by side. As the day continues, you might not think constantly about the gods. You might focus on your work, your tasks. Your routine. But the presence of belief remains. In small gestures. In familiar spaces. In the steady rhythm of repeated actions. And as evening approaches, you may return once more to your household shrine. A brief moment, a small offering, a quiet pause before rest. Nothing dramatic, nothing overwhelming. Just a simple acknowledgement of the world around you. As we gently step away from these quiet beliefs, we begin to notice something else. All of this daily life. The food. The water. The materials used in homes and buildings. They come from somewhere. They move across roads, across seas. Through markets and ports. In the next segment, we will follow these movements. We will explore how goods traveled across the Roman world. How trade systems supported daily life. And how the quiet flow of materials connected distant regions into one steady network. Now, let us follow the movement of things. Not people this time, but objects. Food. Cloth. Oil. Grain. The quiet necessities of daily life. In the Roman world, very little stayed in one place. Even something as simple as bread had a long journey behind it. The grain may have been grown far away. In wide, sunlit fields in regions like Egypt, where the river provided rich soil and steady harvests. Once harvested, the grain was packed carefully, loaded onto boats. And carried along the river. From there, it traveled across the sea. Slowly. Gently. Following familiar routes shaped by wind and current. Ships moved with patience. There was no rush. Only timing. Waiting for the right conditions. The right direction of wind. When the ships arrived at ports such as Ostia, near the city of Rome, the grain was unloaded, carried by workers, stored in large warehouses. Then distributed into the city. Eventually, it reached the baker. Who turned it into bread. And by the time it reached your hands, it felt simple. Ordinary. But behind it was a long, quiet journey. This same pattern applied to many goods. Olive oil from southern regions. Wine from vineyards across the empire. Cloth woven in one place and sold in another. Everything moved. Not quickly, but steadily. The Roman road system made this possible on land. Carts rolled along stone roads, wheels turning slowly, animals pulling weight over long distances. Merchants traveled with their goods, stopping at towns along the way. Resting. Selling. Continuing. At each stop, small markets formed. Some were permanent, others appeared only on certain days. Stalls filled with items from near and far. Simple pottery, fresh food. Fabric. Tools. Nothing extravagant, but everything necessary. Coins were used for trade. Small metal discs passed from hand to hand. Each one carrying a certain value, making exchange easier. More predictable. Instead of trading goods directly, people could buy and sell with clarity. A quiet system of agreement. Taxes also played a role. Goods moving across regions were often counted. Measured. A portion taken as tax. This supported the functioning of the state, maintained roads, funded public works. Again, not always visible, but always present. Ports were especially important, places where land and sea met. Where ships arrived and departed. Where goods changed direction. At these ports, there was movement, but not chaos. More like a steady rhythm. Loading. Unloading. Recording. Storing. Everything had a process. Everything followed a pattern. Even in distant parts of the empire, this system created a sense of connection. Person in one region could use goods from another without ever traveling there. Oil from one land, grain from another. Cloth from somewhere else entirely, all arriving through a network that worked quietly in the background. For most people, this system was simply part of life. You did not need to think about where things came from, only that they arrived. Regularly. Reliably. And this reliability created stability, a sense that the world, though large, was connected, that what you needed would continue to appear. As long as the system remained in place. As the day moves forward, merchants close their stalls, carts slow to a stop, ships rest in the harbor. The movement pauses, but only for a while. Tomorrow, it will begin again. The same routes, the same goods, the same steady rhythm. And now, as we gently step away from the flow of trade, we begin to notice something else. Not everything in this world is equal. Not everyone lives the same life. There are differences. Clear ones. In wealth. In power. In opportunity. In the next segment, we will explore the structure of Roman society, the layers that define who people are. Where they stand, and how daily life changes depending on that position. Now, let us gently shift our focus from movement to structure. From goods and trade to people and position. Because in ancient Rome, as in many societies, not everyone lived the same life. There was a clear order, quiet but firm structure that shaped daily experience. At the very top were the elite, wealthy families. Landowners. Individuals who held influence in politics and public life. Their names were often known, their decisions carried weight. Below them were ordinary citizens, men who had certain rights. They could work, trade, and participate in civic duties. Some were craftsmen. Others were merchants or farmers. Their lives were stable, but still shaped by the larger system around them. Then there were freedmen, people who had once been enslaved, but had gained their freedom. Their position was unique. They were no longer bound, yet still connected to their former masters in certain ways. They worked, built lives, moved carefully within society. And finally, at the base of this structure, were slaves. Their lives were the most restricted. They worked in homes, in fields, in workshops. Some lived in difficult conditions. Others, especially those in households, experienced a more stable routine. But their freedom was limited, their role defined by ownership. This structure was not always loud or enforced with constant visible force. Instead, it was understood, accepted as part of daily life. People knew where they stood, and most remained within that position throughout their lives. Movement between classes was possible, but slow. Careful. Often requiring time, effort, and opportunity. The law also played an important role. Rome was known for its legal system. Rules were written. Recorded. Applied across the city and beyond. Disputes could be brought before officials. Decisions were made with a sense of order, not always perfectly fair, but structured. Predictable. There was comfort in that predictability. People understood what was expected, what was allowed. What was not. Public spaces reflected this structure as well. The forum, for example, was a place where civic life unfolded. People gathered. Business was conducted. Legal matters were discussed. It was not chaotic. It followed a rhythm. Officials spoke. Citizens listened. Decisions were recorded. Life moved forward. Even clothing could signal a person's place in society. Simple garments for workers, more refined fabrics for the wealthy. Small details that quietly indicated status. Without words. Homes also reflected this hierarchy. Small apartments for many, larger houses for fewer. Space itself became a sign of position. Yet despite these differences, the system held together because it was supported by everything we have already seen. Roads, water, trade, law, all working quietly to maintain balance. For someone living within this world, the structure might not feel unusual. It would simply be normal, a part of daily life. Just like walking on a road or visiting the baths. As the day comes to a close, people return to their homes, each to a different kind of space. Each within a different level of comfort. And this brings us to our final segment, a place where the systems of Rome provide not just function, but refinement.com. And quiet luxury. In the next segment, we will step inside a wealthy Roman villa. We will explore a life shaped by comfort, space, and carefully arranged beauty, a contrast to the simpler routines we have seen so far. Now, let us slow down even more. Step away from the busy streets. Away from the markets, the workshops, the steady movement of daily life, and enter a quieter place. A Roman villa. The entrance is simple, but deliberate, a doorway set within smooth stone walls. You step inside, and the sounds of the city soften almost immediately. The air feels still. At the center of the home is an open space. An atrium. Light falls gently from above through an opening in the roof. Below it, a shallow pool collects rainwater. The surface is still, reflecting the sky in soft, shifting patterns. Around this central space, rooms are arranged with care. Nothing feels crowded. Everything has its place. The floors beneath your feet are smooth, often decorated with mosaics. Small pieces of stone, arranged into quiet patterns, shapes that repeat. Colors that blend softly together. You walk slowly through the space. Your footsteps echo lightly. To one side, there is a room for receiving guests, furnished with low couches and simple tables. It is a place for conversation, for quiet meetings, for moments that unfold without hurry. Further inside, you find a garden. Enclosed. Peaceful. Green plants grow in careful arrangement. Perhaps a small fountain sits at the center, its water moving gently, creating a soft and constant sound. Here, the outside world feels distant. Time seems too slow. You can sit. Rest. Listen to the water. Feel the warmth of the sun as it moves across the space. The villa is not only beautiful. It is practical. Water flows here as well, carried through pipes from the same systems that supply the city. Basins for washing. Fountains for decoration. Even small channels that guide water where it is needed. Some villas include heated floors. System beneath the surface allows warm air to pass through, gently raising the temperature of the rooms. It is not intense heat, just a quiet warmth. Comfort that is steady and controlled. Meals here are different from those of ordinary households. They are slower, more varied, served in courses: bread, fruits, vegetables, perhaps fish or meat. Depending on the household, food is arranged with care, not only for nourishment, but for presentation. Evenings are calm. Lamps are lit. Soft light fills the rooms. People gather for conversation or quiet reflection. There is no urgency. No loud interruption. Only a steady flow of time. Servants move quietly through the villa, maintaining order, preparing food. Cleaning. Ensuring that everything continues to function smoothly. Their presence is constant, yet often unnoticed. Like many of the systems we have explored. Working quietly in the background. From within the villa, it is easy to forget the wider world. The roads. The markets, the labor that supports this comfort. And yet, it is all connected. The water flowing through the villa comes from distant sources. The food arrives through trade networks. The structure itself follows the same principles of design and balance we have seen before. Everything is part of a larger system, even here. In this place of calm. As night deepens, the villa becomes even more still. The garden rests under the open sky. The fountain continues its soft, steady sound, Rooms grow quiet as people retire for the evening dot, and in this quiet, there is a sense of completion, a feeling that the day has unfolded exactly as it should. Order, balance, comfort, all held gently within these walls. And now, as we step away from this peaceful space, we move toward our final reflection, a moment to consider how these simple inventions, these quiet systems, have shaped the world far beyond ancient Rome. Now, let everything slow. The villa fades gently behind us. The garden, the fountain, the soft glow of lamplight, all becoming distant. And in their place, a wider view begins to settle. Ancient Rome is no longer a place you are walking through. It becomes something quieter, something that lingers, not in noise, but in presence, because the inventions we have explored were never meant to impress. They were not designed for spectacle. They were designed to work. Quietly. Reliably. Day after day, a road that stretches forward, stone after stone, a stream of water guided gently into a city, a system of pipes hidden beneath the ground, warm air moving silently beneath a floor, a written law that brings structure to daily life. None of these demand attention. And yet, together, they shape everything. If you listen closely, you can still feel them today. In the roads you travel. In the water that arrives without effort. In the buildings that keep you warm. In the quiet expectation that systems will simply function. These are not new ideas. They are echoes, reflections of something built long ago, something steady, something patient. Of course, life in ancient Rome was not always comfortable. Many lived with limitations, with routines that required effort and endurance, with roles they did not choose. And yet, within that world, there was a quiet determination to improve. To build. To refine. Not quickly. But gradually. Thought by thought. Stone by stone. And perhaps that is what remains most clearly. Not the grandeur, not the empire itself, but the small decisions, the simple inventions, the quiet solutions to everyday problems. As you rest now, you can imagine those systems continuing. A road stretching into the distance under a fading sky. Water moving gently through hidden channels. Villa growing still as night settles in. Everything calm. Everything in its place. There is no rush here. No urgency. Only a slow, steady rhythm. The kind that carries you gently forward and eventually into rest. So let your thoughts drift like water through an aqueduct. Slow. Continuous. Untroubled. And as they fade, you can take comfort in this simple idea that even the quietest inventions can last the longest. And that somewhere beneath the surface of the modern world, ancient Rome is still, quietly, at work. Good night.